What's up everyone, it's the Irishman here. We just got to Calgary, just checked into the hotel in our room now. Plan is we're going to go play some cash, fire all the tournaments this week. If you see me out here, come say hello, we'll grab a pint. We have ourselves set up here to edit and record in the room. You can see here, we have our new Shure mic, so the audio should be greatly improved. We're going to grind plenty of hours at the table, plenty of hours here editing. Yeah, so that's that. So I'll see you now at Deerfoot.
Always got the vibe, got the vibe, got the vibe.
What's up everyone, welcome back to the vlog. We're out here at the Deerfoot Casino in Calgary for the WSOP Poker Calgary event. Today we're jumping into $400 monster stack first. It's a 40k starting stack, quite a fast structure, so let's get into the first hand. The blinds are 200, 300, we have a stack of 45k. The button opens to 1000 and I defend the big blind with ace-7 off. Flop comes down ace-9-6. So we flop top pair, weak kicker. We're going to check and float to the aggressor, but he checks back. Turn now comes an ace, giving us trips. So we're going to start betting now for value. Try to get money in the pot. He can have some nines. He checks back some second pairs and stuff. I wouldn't expect him to check back too many aces. Maybe some two pairs as traps. But generally, we're going to definitely have the best hand here most of the time. I bet 1,500 into 2,500. And he clicks it to 4,000. So interesting that he checks the flop and then raises the turn. Don't think we want to click it back. I think he can have some bluffs that he's raising, and he can also have some aces. A lot of them are better than ours, so we're just going to call. River now comes an 8. Complete some straights, but he shouldn't really have any of them. We check it to him and he bets 5k. Don't think we can do anything here than call. I think it would be ambitious to raise. We're only beating a couple of aces. We're behind to a lot. If he is bluffing, they're going to fold anyway. So we just call and he turns over king-9 off. So bit of a weird line he took there. Don't really like his play. He has a bluff catcher. He can just call turns and river. So nice to scoop a pot early. In this hand, the blinds are still 200, 300 with a 300 big blind ante. There's 3 limps in early position before the hijack makes it 2.5k. Cut off calls. He's an old guy. He's been playing pretty tight. I make it 10k on the button with ace-king. Pretty strong cards here. We want to raise it up. Hijack decides to go all in for 35k. So we'd be calling him when we expect the cutoff more than likely to fold. But instead, the cutoff decides to go all in for 50k. So now we're in a tough spot here because it's a lot of big blinds. It's nearly 200 bigs that he shoves for. Ace-king's not going to play well for 200 bigs. And I also find, especially the older players, they like to call a lot of hands and then get them in. So I do expect him to sometimes have some traps here. Like, I don't think he's just going wild with like a pair of 9s, like a pair of 10s when he knows I'm behind. So this is really suspicious. So I would have called the hijack if we were heads up, but I think we can just let this go because given the fact that I think the old guy can have a lot of monsters that he trapped with pre, ace-king off isn't going to perform well 3 ways. We're really deep, so I don't think we need to be taking this many risks early. We're going to have a decent edge in the tournament, so ultimately I think a fold is going to be the best play here. We end up folding. The original guy who went all in turns over ace-king, and the old guy has queens. So we would have been in bad shape. We both block each other's outs against the queens. An ace ends up coming on the river, so we would have chopped the old guy's 50k, but I think the fold is generally going to be good here pre. I don't think we need to just go too wild this early in the tournament. We're going to have a decent skill edge over the players, so I think we played that fine. So next interesting hand comes from the 300, 500 level with 43k in our stack. Early position opens to 1300. The cutoff calls. The small blind calls and we look down at pocket queens in the big blind. One of the strongest hands here in poker, so we're going to want to raise this up for value. We're going to be out of position if people call, so we want to go with a bit of a bigger size. We raised to 6,500. Could probably even go a bit bigger. Early position calls and the cut-off and small blind get out of the way. So we're going heads up to a flop. There's 16k already in the middle. This is already a pretty big pot, and it comes down 4 clubs, 5 of clubs, 6 of diamonds. So really connected board here. Not the best board for queens. He's obviously going to have all the sets, which we don't have. We're going to have the queens, kings, and aces, which he would 4-bet pre, but this is generally going to be a dicey board for us. I think sometimes we can go with some checks. And I think if this was a heads-up pot against maybe the button who would have a wider range, we would probably mix in some more checks. But given this guy was early position, we're 10-handed, he's going to have a lot of 8s, 9s, 10s, jacks. So we're going to want to keep betting our overpair here from value. It does need more protection than a hand like aces or kings. So maybe aces and kings would make better check, as we don't need to protect as much from overcards. We fire out a bet of 7k into 16k, and he calls. So we're going heads up to a turn. There's 30k in the middle, and the turn comes a pretty bad one. Comes the 8 of clubs. It completes the flush. It puts a 4-liner to a straight out there. Any 7 is now a straight. So there's a lot of stuff beating us here now. So I don't think we're going to want to keep betting on this card. We're going to check it over to him and see what he does. He checks it back pretty quickly, which is pretty interesting, because if he did have a hand like pocket 7s or a7 of clubs or a7 of diamonds with a backdoor. So I think all of his flushes and straights would bet the turn, especially when I'm going to have a bunch of overpairs, especially out of the big blind. Like, I'm going to defend so much hands multi-way in the big blind. I'm going to be pretty polar here. So I would never expect anyone to check back if they turn their flush or if they turn their straight. They're going to just want to get all the chips from all the overpairs. So given he checks back pretty quickly, I found this pretty interesting. River now comes the 4 hearts, so not the worst card, because we now do beat 2 pairs like 5-6 suited, even though there's only 2 combos out there. So I think now this is a spot where it looks dicey, because there's a 4-liner to a straight, there's a flush out there, but I think these are the spots where people miss a lot of value. When he checks back the turn, as I said, I don't think he's going to have any of the nutted hands. So he probably is going to have a lot of hands that are overpairs that are worse than ours. So I think we're going to want to bet this river for value. And I also think when we bet the river for value, I don't think he's going to expect us to be capable of value betting overpairs on such a dangerous board like this. So we're going to fire out a bet of 18k. This sends him deep into the tank. He's deciding what to do. And what I'm hoping is that he thinks I'm not capable of value betting an overpair here, but he may think I'm bluffing with a hand like ace king or ace queen. After a long time in the tank, he eventually flicks out the call. We turn over our hand and it's good. So nice to scoop a 66k pot there. I think that was a pretty nice spot to go for value on the river, and it's definitely a spot a lot of people miss value on. They just check and it goes check, check, and we just miss that extra 18k from a hand like 9s, 10s, jacks. So happy with how I played this one, and happy we had the winner. Next interesting hand comes from the 400, 800 level. I have 55k in my stack. Under the gun opens to 1700. The next seat over calls. I look down at pocket 4s and the cutoff. Easy call here. We're going to call and set mine. Button calls and the big blind comes along. We're going 5 ways to a flop. There's 9700 in the middle, and the flop comes queen 4-4. So we flop quads. Absolute dream. Not very often you get to flop quads. And in a 5-way pot, we're hoping to get a lot of chips here. Hoping everyone has a bunch of hands. Checks all the way around to the button, and she bets 4k. Folds back around to me. We're just going to call with quads. No point doing anything else. Turn now comes the jack of clubs. So it brings a potential flush draw out there, because the queen 4-4, there was a queen of clubs on board. So we're hoping that she has a big hand or turn a big draw. We check and she bets 5k into 17.7. So really small bet there. I think now we're going to want to raise. When she bets this small, she can have some weak top pairs, hands like this. So we want to start getting value. We want to try get stacks in by the river. We don't want to raise too big, because we really don't want to get a fold. So we're just going to click it back to 12k, and she calls. River now comes the 9 of clubs. So could be a good or bad card depending on what she had. It does complete a lot of draws, But generally, I'd expect most of her hands to be a Queen X. So she has only 20k left. There's 41.7 in the middle. We're going to shove for the rest of her chips. She goes into the tank and eventually folds and shows a queen. So I think the 9 of clubs didn't help us there. It makes her lose to a lot more than she was already losing to. So always nice to flop quads. We want a decent pop, but bit tilting that we didn't get the rest of the chips. Maybe we could have shoved turn, but I think if the turn bet was like 2/3 pot, if she had bet 12k, then we could shove. But when she bets a third pot on the turn, I think shoving would be a disaster. We are just going to generate so much folds. But a nice pot to keep us trucking along, keep the stack growing. This next hand is also from the 400, 800 level. We've been cruising so far, grown our stack up to 80k, so we're at double starting stack. We've 100 bigs for this level. I open King Jack suited in middle position to 2500. The hijack makes it 8k, explaining a 30k stack or so. The big blind now calls, so we're in an interesting spot here. We're not loving it having to call. We could easily be dominated, but we're also getting a really good price on our money. So I think we just have to call along here. We're going to tread carefully, even if we do flop a hand like top pair. But after the big blind calls, we kind of end up priced in, so we flick in the call. Flop comes King of clubs, Queen of clubs, 5 of diamonds. Big blind checks. We're going to check and float to the aggressor, and he moves all in for his last 21k. Big blind gets out of the way, and now I think we can't do anything else other than call. Yeah, sometimes we're going to lose to a hand like ace king, aces, but when we call here and flop top pair in a 3-bet pot, he is less than pot behind on the flop. We're just going to have to stick it in. We've seen him do some weird shit already, so we make the call. He turns over ace queen, board runs out blank, absolutely clean, and we stack him and take his chips. So nice. We've been winning every pot so far. We're playing pretty well, so hopefully we continue in the right direction. Blinds are now 501k. We have 120k in our stack. It must have taken a couple of blue pills because it just keeps going up. Under the gun limps, and we look down a queen jack of clubs on the button. Good enough for a raise. We bump it up to 3200 to go. The small blind calls and the big blind calls. Under the gun comes along as well, so we're going 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes down, 4 of diamonds, jack of hearts, 5 of diamonds. So we flop top pair. Okay, kicker here. When it's checked to us, we're going to continue with a bet for value. We bet 4k. We usually use small sizes, especially in these multi-way pots. Small blind folds, but the big blind and under the gun come along. 3 ways to a turn. There's now 25.8k in the middle. Comes to 5 of hearts. It gets checked to us again. I think we can go 2 ways. I think if I had a hand like ace jack, I would continue. But I think this hand maybe wants the pot control. Big blind can certainly have some 5s, especially versus the small flop bet. So I think checking back for some pot control. We're 3 ways here. If we were heads up, we definitely go for value. But I think a check is going to be fine here. We're going to have some better hands we can bet that can't be out-kicked if we had a hand like ace jack. River now comes to 8 of diamonds. Shouldn't change too much. 6-7 does get there, but the flush draw misses. Big blind leads out for 10k. Under the gun folds, and we have a slam dunk call here. 10k into 25k, we're getting 3.5 to 1. He can be value betting some worse jacks, especially for this sizing. So we flick in the call and get the bad news. We got unlucky. He rivered a full house with pocket 8. So the turn check let him in there, but I don't think we can be results orientated. If my auntie had balls, she'd be my uncle, but she doesn't, so she's not. We can't think like this. I think the turn check was fine. We just got super unlucky and have to pay off the river bets. Blinds are now 1k, 2k, and we're in the big blind. Middle position, min raises to 4k off a 28k stack, so 14 big blinds. He's the only other player at the table who I'd consider pretty decent. Everyone else is pretty poor, so he's definitely one of the better players probably in the field. So when it falls to us in the big blind, we have an easy defend here with ace-8 of clubs. Flop comes ace of diamonds, 9 of diamonds, 3 of hearts. So we flop top pair, we kicker. We check to the aggressor, and he fires out a bet of 4k, 1/3 pot. I'd expect him to bet his entire range for a small sizing here on this board, especially he knows what he's doing, so he's going to continue on this board with everything he has, even everything that misses. And the fact that he's pretty decent, he can actually have a decent amount of opens off a 14 big blind stack. We have a pretty easy call here on the flop. Turn now comes to jack of hearts. It brings in the second flush draw. We check to him and he goes all in for his last 15k. Don't think we can do anything here other than call. Yeah, sometimes we're going to be behind to a better ace, but given the price, I think he's also going to shove all of his diamond draws on the turn. Any hands he had with backdoor hearts are also going to shove. So ace 8 suited here is going to be a call. We just have to hope we don't run into a better hand. But unfortunately, we run into ace king. River comes a blank and he gets the double up. Brings us back to starting stack. So last couple of levels haven't went how we wanted. We've 20 big blinds now. We need to start spinning. The structure is super quick, so we're definitely in the danger zone. But with how fast the structure is, there's all ins everywhere. We can certainly get a double or two. We've went card dead in the last level or two, which is not ideal and such a quick structure when you're short stacked. We look down at ace 5 off in middle position. We've only 8 big blinds. That's good enough to go all in. Button calls and we run into ace queen. We're going to need some help here on the flop, turn or the river. But help doesn't arrive and we're sent packing. Not ideal. We had 120k stack at one stage, but given how quick the structure was, it got very turbo-y there. Not much we could do. I don't think we could have played too many hands different. Maybe the hand where we call eights, but bar that, there was going to be a lot of luck involved in such a massive field, quick structured event. Main event is coming tomorrow. Stick around. It's a 40-minute clock day 1, hour level day 2, so a lot more time, more play involved. We'll be vlogging every hand, so keep it tuned. We also have another cash game vlog coming from this week. There's a bunch of 5-5, 5-5, 10 games running, so we will get some footage from there as well and get it uploaded. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you now on the outro. So, just posted the 400 monster stack. Got our last 8 bigs in with ace 5, ran into ace queen. Really quick structure. We had it up to 3 starting stacks. We had 120k pretty early on, but lost a couple of important hands. Ended up short stacked. They're playing down to 5% today, so the structure's so fast. So not much we could have done. Plan now, I think, will be to jump in the satellite for the main event tomorrow. We're going to play the main day 1A tomorrow. So 0 for 1 so far, but we're only in for 1 bullet, which is always good. Table itself was pretty good. It was 10-handed, just because they didn't have enough tables or dealers. Like, there was a long queue all day just to get in, so it was not enjoyable. 10-handed poker is the worst. But yeah, I'm going to get back on the grind now. Thanks for tuning in. See you on the next one.